Hello and welcome to another segment of KONE Conversations, a podcast featuring one-on-one interviews with various employees and subject matter experts from KONE, a global leader in the elevator and escalator industry. I'm Kevin Metz. On a frequent basis, we get behind the scenes with key players and those in the field to deliver their unique insights and perspectives from KONE. On this episode of KONE Conversations, we're joined by Nicole Manzo, Senior Vice President of HR for KONE North America. Welcome, Nicole. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Nicole, as we do with all KONE Conversations guests, I'd like to have you share a little bit about your role at KONE. What does your day-to-day look like leading HR for the company?
Sure. Glad to do that. Thanks again for having me. I'm really excited about the opportunity here to speak to you today. At KONE, we have more than 7,000 employees in various roles, including a very talented field team of professionals that are in the front lines every day serving our customers from anywhere from engineering, installation, and providing new innovations and technology to our customers. So it's very exciting to have the opportunity to be leading the HR function for KONE, both because we're a global company and that brings a lot of opportunity and ability to work with people from all over the world, but also just to be able to connect with people on many backgrounds and talents here in the Americas. And I would say, from my perspective, the biggest opportunity and the biggest responsibility that I personally feel is important in my role is really around the culture and helping to formulate and guide the culture of the company at KONE. And we were really excited to launch our new values here earlier this year around care, customer, courage, and collaboration into our employee population and kind of bring to life what those mean for us. And it's really near and dear to my heart and my approach as a leader. So very aligned to who I am as a person. And I think that responsibility of really guiding and helping the organization embed the culture that we are so proud of, but also areas where we know we can actually even improve. That's really where I see the biggest opportunity for my role and my role as a leader at KONE.
That's great. I know that culture is so important, and I know obviously 2020 was an unprecedented year. We have a lot of employees remote working, and employee engagement was a big buzzword and really name of the game for a lot of corporations. As you mentioned, HR does play a role in employee engagement and driving that culture. What kinds of things or initiatives did KONE do during this time to keep employees connected and engaged?
That's a great question, and there's so much there to talk about and to kind of unpack. I think, the key thing for us during the pandemic was really at the forefront of our mind, and the most important thing was the safety of our employees and of the riding community, making sure that our hospitals, nursing homes, places that were really impacted by the pandemic, that our installers and our operators were, able to do their job safely. And also for our staff employees coming into large locations, we really limited that and allowed people the flexibility to work remotely to focus on safety at the forefront. And I think, that's a really interesting part of our culture. I think we always have that on our mind as leaders, and it's something that is really attractive about KONE is the focus on safety. It's not the safest industry to work in, and so to have that culture so strongly embedded in our DNA, I think was really, all the focus for us to continue making sure that we had a safe place for people to work. And if that meant remote working for the majority of our employees, that's really what we wanted to do, is create an environment where people had the flexibility to feel safe and to continue being productive during the pandemic. I think, having a lot of collaboration within the organization and a lot of different people and different facets coming together to make that possible. If you think about our IT teams, reacting and responding to making sure we even had the tools for meetings and connection points was really critical. And making sure that companies like KONE are keeping up with the communication to employees. I think people were hungry to understand, what the rules of the game were and what the protocols would be and how to work safely. So it was really critical for us to communicate frequently, transparently, and provide as much information as we could to people, both in the field and in our main offices and branches on, updates coming from either the CDC or legislation in different countries. So that was really critical. And I think internally we focused quite a bit on, how to engage employees at a much deeper level. So we saw more effort around having town hall meetings to discuss, business results and keeping our employees informed. As I said earlier, we're, launching a new strategy. So when you're trying to do some of these exciting things virtually, we needed to find different ways to reach our employees and keep them engaged in those processes and that new information coming out. I think, another key thing that we focused on was really specifically information on the pandemic and daily, giving people hands-on communication that helped them with, understanding what was happening, not just safety messages, but really how does the pandemic affect people's well-being. We were helping provide tools and resources for mental health and for opportunities for people to just connect and focus on sustainability and resilience during this time. And I think, that's another aspect of just caring for one another and making sure that we're reaching out and trying to keep that communication open. And I think at a more regional or direct level, our leaders did a great job of, keeping that communication open, knowing who their teams were and individuals and reaching out to check in on people. And that goes a long way. I think it's probably the most impactful thing we could do as leaders is, reaching out to our teams on individual standpoints and making sure that we're connecting with them. We saw a lot of great things, happy hours and connection points and virtual meetings and walking and talking type meetings and different creative ideas that came from our talent really on how to stay connected. So that's really, I think, something I'm very proud to see. It really emulates what it's like to work at KONE, and this kind of, caring for one another was really front and foremost, I think, in people's mind of just taking care of one another. And then I think another thing that I'm really proud of is, we hosted a inclusion week back in October, and that was a great opportunity for employees to come together and connect. It was fun. It was engaging. It wasn't talking about the pandemic, and kind of some business challenges. It was really around people having an opportunity to share more about their true selves with one another and share ideas and opportunities of how we can create a more inclusive working environment, even if it's virtual right now. So I think everybody's really, excited to get back to normal at some point. But in the light of this, we've really, I think, come together as a company and come together as teams to make the best of it and actually even thrive in many cases and show that we can be productive and keep moving forward and have that resilience.
Absolutely. I know that it really was the year of the Zoom call and the year of Microsoft Teams, I think, was what KONE used. And it's great to hear that communication, keeping employees engaged, and obviously safety was top of mind. Nicole, you mentioned that KONE has so many employees, just not in North America, but really across the globe. The company is in a position to continue to grow, and with that has a lot of key roles to fill across various positions and areas. How have you seen recruitment or recruitment activities change or those efforts morph over the last year?
Great question. I believe that, for us, we did not see a huge slowdown in our recruitment activity. And so it was really critical for us to focus on shifting our energy to making the virtual interview process as robust as possible, as interactive as possible, helping people feel connected along the process and helping keeping the candidates engaged and leaders engaged in the process as well. And I think the virtual tools that we've used have been great. People are actually enjoying that process, and we haven't really had too many issues with, from a process standpoint. We're looking at some new technology also for artificial intelligence and looking at how we create even a more efficient process, I would say, across the board. Some of the other areas I think that companies are focusing on and we continue to focus on is really the demand for great talent in the market. And that, demand creates opportunities for us to think and strategize on how we attract and what our corporate position is, right? What we want to tell the world about KONE and how we want to attract people to KONE. We've got a great culture, as I mentioned, and so emulating that and being able to translate that for people to want to join KONE and recognize us as an employer of choice is really at the forefront of our mind. And I think we've got a very good footprint and a very good offering. And so making KONE attractive and helping engage people early in that process in the candidate experience is something that's really important to us. I think the other area that we've had to shift our thinking on a bit was onboarding. How do you virtually onboard someone, and how do you stay connected and bring them in to the organization when they're limited as far as being able to maybe go out into the field and learn more about the business or have the interactions that we naturally would afford a new employee joining our company. So we've virtualized quite a bit of that and allowed employees to have very strong learning paths coming into the company. I think our leaders have done a good job of reaching out and even identifying people on the team to kind of buddy or mentor new talent coming in. And we've had some very focused approaches for mentoring there, where we're really trying to bridge that gap and help people feel welcome and comfortable coming into the company and learn what they can, even in a virtual situation. Some of our new employees have said that it's actually been really helpful to have the virtual environment. They've absolutely felt like they've been able to reach out and have the openness to jump on a video call, and they're still getting that face-to-face interaction and making connections with people. So that's really, I think, where the efforts have been over the last year, not just for KONE, but I think for most companies would be to, how do you handle that in a virtual situation?
Nicole, you mentioned you launched KONE's values of care, customer courage, and collaboration. You also mentioned recruiting and employee engagement and also onboarding. As we do move into the new year, what are your predictions for not just KONE, but what do companies need to be focused on?
I think there's two key things for me that I would predict are going to create opportunities for all companies in the coming year. I think the first one is really about what the new normal will look like. And with changes in legislation and changes in work environment and flexibility options, I think that that's going to be the forefront for most companies to revisit those policies, procedures, and how we actually provide an environment where people can thrive and have the flexibility they need to do work in the way that they need to complete their work. And I think that's also going to shift into our thinking about our blueprint, right, for office space and for some of the changes that we need to make actually and how we rethink the office space and collaboration in general. So I think that's going to be a big topic and a big opportunity as well to create something very new and exciting for employees to have as options in the work environment and how work gets done. I think another prediction would be the focus around mental health and wellness. In addition to safety, that's a key priority for me, and something that I'm very passionate about is that we're creating an environment where people can thrive and where people can have resources that they need actually, throughout the life cycle of their work. We spend a lot of time at work as human beings, and I think the environment needs to be a safe place for people to come and where resources are available for people. And then I think the one of the most important things really is around stepping up to the challenge that we have in not just companies, but in the communities that we live in and in the world that we live in around diversity and inclusion. To me, this is a very important topic. It's not something that is just something I'm concerned about for KONE and the legacy that I leave as a leader here, but it's really around, what type of world do I want to leave, and what type of space do I want to be able to create for people to come to work every day and thrive and feel that they're treated fairly and equitably, and that we have a good environment for people to continue to thrive in. So from a leadership perspective, this is not, just me speaking, but if you spoke to any of our leaders right now, I think this is one of the most critical areas on their mind is this inclusion piece and creating an environment that can be even more inclusive than it is today and understanding and opening up dialogue with employees about where some of those barriers may be that we need to really identify and help remove. So to me, that's really exciting. It's a huge opportunity for companies and for us to kind of make a difference, and something that I'm excited to be spearheading and helping with. So to me, that's probably one of the biggest ones, biggest areas for companies right now that we need to be thinking about that. And I would also say, from our perspective at KONE, we're investing in diversity and inclusion. We're creating more of a structure of a center of expertise and looking for talent in that area that can come in and help us with, strategizing and driving that initiative forward over the coming years. So it's exciting to see the momentum both globally and locally around this topic at KONE.
No, that's great. I know you also did mention you're excited to announce a new role, that head of diversity and inclusion. So I'll encourage folks to check out all of those new positions on Workday or KONE.us. That's actually all the time we have for today. Nicole, many thanks for joining us and sharing your insights on KONE.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Be sure to visit KONE.us and our YouTube channel for an archived copy of today's episode of KONE Conversations and for more information on the KONE solutions, technology, and culture discussed today. Watch our social media channels for information about upcoming guests on future podcasts. I'm Kevin Metz. Thanks for being here, and join us again for more KONE Conversations.